Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to our CLA volunteer and intern refresher. Jessamine and I are here today, and we also have the great support of our whole admin team in developing this refresher. Brianna, our HR manager, Stephanie, our executive director, and Susan Riccardi, our office manager. Everyone had a hand in being part of the conversations and development of this, as well as our shift supervisors. So I want to say thank you to everyone for helping us put this together. We really wanted this opportunity for everyone to be having the same conversation at once. We know we have a new team of CLA hires, plus we have our CLAs who have been doing great work for quite some time. We have our volunteers, we have our interns, and we've had some changes with the admin team. So it felt really important that we were having this collective conversation all at once. With that, it's a little difficult to get 70 people who work a 24/7, 365 line to be live on a refresher or a retrain. So Justin and I agreed to deliver this to you kind of asynchronous so that you can watch it at your own pace. You can take breaks from it. You can kind of soak it up at a time that works for you. And so a reminder that this is coming through Air Mason, so it does need to be viewed and then signed off of as an HR requirement so that we're certain everyone has been part of this conversation, everyone's had the opportunity to view it in its entirety. And there will also be a Google form that comes to you over email for you to be able to ask questions because you're not here live. And we want to make sure if there's anything additional that needs to be addressed, that we have that opportunity. So while we are not together live, we are together in following policies and protocol and working together on the line. As the months go on and my time here goes on, there will be an opportunity for a collective roundtable, but we wanted to make sure that this got rolled out in a timely manner, especially since there's been so many changes and we've really had to be leaning on each other in so many different ways. So to get started today, I just want to say thank you for making the time. Thank you for the work that you've been doing. And thank you for your continued commitment to the crisis line, to Cape Samaritans, to 988, and the way that you show up for the work every day and show up for our callers, both the mission-based part of this work, but also the part of this work that has to meet a lot of metrics and protocol through the Department of Public Health and 988 and the federal government. We know there's a lot of challenges there. So we deeply appreciate your time. So let's see here. We're going to click through in theory. Whoops. 1 second. There we go. There you are. Okay. So please take the time to review the Samaritans handbook, policies, and procedures, which are in Air Mason. They were part of your onboarding, whether you are new or whether you've been here for quite some time. It's your responsibility to know what is in the handbook, to know what is in our policies and procedures. So please familiarize yourself with that. That will just help you as we work together to meet a uniform protocol, uniform behaviors on the line, and serving our callers and working together. So we have been training the shift supervisors on what we're calling the DFF, or the developmental feedback form. And the developmental feedback form is an opportunity for us to get information about what's been happening on the line, what's working, what isn't, who might need some support. And then the developmental feedback form could escalate to a point of policy violation. Again, policies rooted in Air Mason, things that you know about. And those can be a conversation with Jessamine and I, an email from Jessamine or I. It could be a written warning, and things can escalate from there. But it all starts with the developmental feedback form in an effort to change a behavior, improve a behavior, and your shift supervisors will be monitoring for these things, writing the DFF, and then Jessamine and I will be receiving them and taking action, escalating, coaching, and things like that from there. So when you see DFF, it means developmental feedback form. And again, it's to help us all know the expectations, to keep the line healthy and functioning, and to be able to work together and know what those expectations are, and a chance for us to get better at our jobs. All of us are working every day to get better at our jobs, both from an admin and executive level, to our supervisors, to our CLAs, to the whole team, including the board and all the stakeholders that we have here. So our ask is not that you're perfect, but that we're consistently trying to follow the same protocol and have the same expectations for everyone, and also that same level of accountability. So I'm going to hand it over to Jessamine, who is going to walk you through some screenshots of the developmental feedback form that the shift supervisors will fill out if it's something they feel that Jessamine and I need to know.
Thank you so much, Janelle. So this is the DFF, and these are just a lot of, policies that we know you guys already are familiar with and hopefully follow, but we just want to walk through it so that you know what to expect with moving forward. So some incidents that could cause a supervisor to fill out the DFF would be being late for 10 to 30 minutes. If you're late for under that, then, we kind of understand. We just really do want you guys to give us the best communication possible regarding, if you're going to be late, if you need to call out of a shift because of an emergency, something along those lines. We just really want you guys to communicate with us so that we can have the context surrounding the incident. So again, call outs less than 24 hours, call outs under 4 hours. We have that in place because we really do want to ask the previous shift if they have anybody who wants to stay on, or even the shift before that. That really helps us with filling in those gaps if you just run into some kind of emergency and cannot make it. And again, the next one, no response to elevate chat, text message, or phone call. That's mostly to the shift supervisor. You need to be in communication with them if, something comes up, if there's a safety concern, if you're running late, that communication is important. So we need you to be communicating with them if anything occurs. It could also be regarding a tech issue. If you're not reaching out to the supervisor, we have no way of knowing what's going on. Next would be a no call, no show, missed calls, not including technical issues, but we do want you to communicate with us for those technical issues. So if you're not getting any calls and you see that everybody else is getting calls, you're having a tech issue and you need to have it resolved. So those missed calls, you need to be responsible for figuring out. Next is inadequate contact reports. We're going to go over that a little bit later, but there are certain standards that our contact reports need to meet. And then other is just anything else that the supervisors feel is negatively impacting the line. They're going to be able to include that context in the fifth portion, which is relevant additional information. They can provide screenshots or any other kind of documentation that may be able to help. And it's going to be sent to Janelle and I so that we can kind of make an assessment on what should happen. If you're late for 10 minutes because you were caught in traffic and it's the first time you've ever been late to a shift, we're going to understand that things happen sometimes. So it's all about context, and we will be reviewing all of the DFFs that are submitted to us.
Great. And so also I want to thank Brianna. She put this together. So it's a linked form that all the shift supervisors will have access to. And she used HR policies, the handbook, the job descriptions to come up, plus feedback from the shift supervisors to come up with some of these named incidents, but also a lot of space for things that we don't always know. We couldn't have a form with 200 things on them. But a big part of why we're doing this is to help coach and to improve. And again, like Jessamine said, to use that context, right? If it's not chronic that you're 5 minutes late and one day you are 5 minutes late and you let your supervisor know and they just say, oh, okay, get in, get settled, and it doesn't happen again, a DFF doesn't need to be filled out, right? If it's a no call, no show, no matter what, a DFF has to be filled out because that puts the line at risk, that puts a burden on the other CLAs, that leaves a supervisor not really sure what to expect of how the line is staffed, right? And it can be a real challenge. So we have to use context for a lot of these, but there's still a lot of open space. And again, the goal is not punishment, right? We don't want it to get to that level. The goal is to improve all of our functions here. So I have this slide here to kind of help you so you can have a sense of what we've asked of the shift supervisors, and you can really see, like, I'm not at all interested in having protocol and procedures that don't make sense, right? I want protocol and procedures that help us get better. And so you can see here what we're asking of the shift supervisors, right? So we are asking for their support. We want shift supervisors to make the CLAs and volunteers and interns, whoever's on the line, to feel a part of a team and not isolated, right? So that's why we have a lot of different communication channels, like in Elevate, for example. That's why we make sure that you have their cell phone numbers should you need support for a crisis call. Right? We want coaching. We want shift supervisors to make a CLA feel like they can develop, that it's not a fixed, I'm good at this or I'm bad at this, but there's always an opportunity for continuous improvement. And our shift supervisors can provide coaching to you in the moment. And that can look like, hey, don't forget to add some more quotes about that conversation on your contact report. Or don't forget to put in the Elevate chat when somebody who's on a specialized protocol has had their one call for the shift, right? So that could be coaching. Coaching could also be like, oh, I find it really helpful when my tech doesn't work that I do this. Right? So we're asking our supervisors to provide that real-time coaching or maybe some follow-up coaching. Feedback. Shift supervisors hold CLAs accountable through support, coaching, and upholding expectations. Right? Again, we know that expectations help us all function better. We know what is the desired outcome here, right? That we're meeting those metrics, that we're answering calls, that we're keeping ourselves safe, keeping the line safe, keeping each other safe and supported. We want to get better. You've heard me reiterate that a few different times in this conversation, right? We want to improve. Shift supervisors want a CLA to succeed through learning and practice. Again, the goal is not perfection, but the goal is that we're trying to get better with every call that we take. Right? We're trying to get better at our ability to befriend. We're trying to get better at our ability to write thorough contact reports, to manage our time so the line isn't understaffed for any time. And then the DFF is in place, or some escalation policies are in place so that the behavior can change, right? So that we can have a better outcome. So shift supervisors want the outcome to be a healthy and functioning line for all. So that's the change. So you can see these 5 components that we've really been training and working on our shift supervisors with, so that these DFF forms and conversations you might have with Jessamine and I aren't just arbitrary, that they're functional. So support, coaching, feedback, improvement, and change, kind of the values that are in the DFF form. So now I'm going to have Jessamine go over 6 points of focus that are mandatory requirements we want to highlight from our admin policy, from the policy that you know, but really strengthen these. So this is like the refresher, retrain component. So we have this DFF, but we also have some key points that we really want to focus in and make sure that everyone is on the same page about. So I'll have Jessamine kick this off.
Yeah, absolutely. So point 1 is the team meetings. I know you guys have all heard about the team meetings, and I'm sure most of you have been to them. Team meetings happen once a month. They are 1 hour, and for CLAs, it is paid. Make sure to include, when you're filling out your iSolved, a note that says team meeting for that 1 hour. Every single month, your team leader will send out a Google form asking you to pick from one of 5 monthly 1 hour long meetings. And these are mandatory for all CLAs. They're strongly encouraged for all volunteers and interns because a lot can be learned from these meetings, but they are mandatory for CLAs. So make sure that you are checking your inbox for your email from the team leader, filling out that Google form every month, and coming to the team meetings. Point 2 is attention to special caller protocol and communications. So 1 call per shift. That list can be found in the info corner. Make sure that you're checking out the info corner every single time that you log in. After you speak with somebody who is on our 1 call per shift list, please post that in the CLA group chat. This is extremely important because we are trying to limit the amount of times that person will call. For example, we have Sarah from Salem who called 1,000 times in a month. That is very excessive, and it's not healthy for her, and it's not healthy for the line. So we really need everybody to be on the same page about the callers and what to say to chronically frequent callers, 1 call per shift callers, all of them. If you're all on the same page, it makes others who are following our practices, it makes their job a lot easier, because if somebody's saying, okay, well, you're on the 1 call per shift list, but I'll give you another call, it makes them expect that every time. And it's going to be extremely difficult for somebody to tell them that on the next time they call. For point 3, we really do not want anybody to share any personal information about themselves, the crisis line, other CLAs, or the schedule. So if a caller is asking, when's your next shift? Do not tell them that. If somebody says, I really want to talk to this person, when are they working next? Do not tell them that. Your personal information, we have these rules in place to protect you, because we do not know who exactly is calling us. We want to believe that they are all great people, but we don't know. So sharing where you're going to school, sharing which city you live in, your actual age, your actual name, things like that, those are safety concerns. And we want you to keep that confidential. And we have some pretty standardized answers or universal answers that you can use for some of those questions, like saying, where are you from? You can say Cape Cod. I wouldn't say which town if you do actually live on the Cape, but they know that they're calling the Samaritans on Cape Cod and the islands. So if you say that, oh, I live on Cape Cod, and they try to get more specific, you're allowed to say, oh, well, our policy says that we're not allowed to disclose that kind of information. Try to flip the conversation back around to them. Where do they live? What do they like to do? Just keep the neutral topics going and try to flip it back to them, because they don't need to know that information about us, and it does put you at risk. Some of our callers, especially some of the frequent callers, know far too much about some of our CLAs, and we have been receiving a lot of complaints from some of our callers and from some of the other CLAs. Our callers do not keep secrets. So if you tell them something, they are going to tell another CLA that you told them that information. I know a lot of what these callers have been telling some of the CLAs, and what they've been telling, what some of the CLAs have been telling them. And since we have been getting increasing amounts of complaints from the callers, unfortunately, Janelle, if you want to change the slide.
Sure, yeah.
Not necessarily unfortunately, but it is, we're going to have to do some more silent monitoring and quality assurance. So with our new person who will be coming on, which is the training coordinator, they're going to be doing some quality assurance. They will be listening in on calls to make sure that you guys are following some of the practices and standards that we have in place. And also for your safety, if you are not following those standards and practices, you may be putting yourself in harm's way, and we don't want you to do that. We need to make sure that you guys are treating every caller with respect, that you're not sounding too robotic or too clinical. As soon as you ask the safety question, if they say, yeah, I'm safe, you don't just hang up on them after that. We want to make sure that you are treating all of our callers with respect and care that they deserve. So we will be doing some silent monitoring and some quality assurance moving forward. That's going to be in August. And those are also put in place because of some of the requirements from the Department of Public Health for Massachusetts, from 988 and Vibrant. Yeah, so we will be doing that, and hopefully it will be for everybody's benefit. It will definitely be for the benefit of the line and for the benefit of our callers. Point 5 is that we must work a minimum of 10 hours every single week, and 25 hours is our maximum right now through Labor Day. We do have those extra hours that you can use, and that's with permission from the admin team, from the supervisors. But also if you do, 30 hours, 5 of those hours need to be on a Friday night, a weekend, or an overnight shift. We recently hired a big training group, one of the largest groups of CLAs that we have trained in a very long time, to help us out with those shifts that we know need coverage. We do know that the weekend shifts really, really need help. Please, if you are signed up for a shift that already has 5 people on it, and you want to change to one of the shifts that has 0 to 1 people on it, that would be greatly appreciated. Reach out to the shift supervisor and they would be happy to help you with that. Please help us out where you can, and at the same time, please do not overwork yourselves by trying to help us out. You alone are not responsible for the health of the crisis line. Lastly, I just want to go over some of the Elevate and iCarol standards and policies that we have in place. So on Elevate, I hope that everybody is included in the CLA group chat. When you log in, you want to check the information corner and the CLA group chat. If you need to go on a break, you need to put BRB in the group chat. If you see that somebody else is already on a break, then you need to wait until they come back. And that's why it's also important for you to write back in the group chat when you return from your break. If you need a break that's longer than 5-10 minutes, then reach out to the supervisor and let them know what's going on so that they know that you're okay and that you didn't just forget to take yourself off break or leave your shift. In addition to that, the CLA group chat is where we place when we have spoken to one of the one call per shift callers. That's extremely important for you to do every time. It's important for you to familiarize yourself with who those callers are, so that when you speak to them, you can identify them and let everybody else know. Okay. Also for Elevate, again, please try to avoid using any kind of, a robotic tone, a more clinical tone. We really do want to be warm and welcoming to the callers. We are befrienders, so we don't want to be overly cheerful in case somebody is calling and they're not in the greatest headspace. But people can call us for any reason. We are not strictly a crisis line. We are also a warm line. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that loneliness is an epidemic in this country, and preventing loneliness is a form of suicide prevention. So we are accepting calls from everybody, all types of callers, and we need to treat them all with the same respect that they all deserve. I need you guys to be watching the cues. So frequent callers receive a maximum of 20 minutes. That is not the minimum that they all get. It is the maximum amount of time that they receive. At 20 minutes is not the time for you to say, oh, we need to begin wrapping up. That needs to happen earlier on. And if there's a lot of calls that are backed up in the queue, especially NSPL or 988 calls, those calls need to take priority over calls from the frequent callers. So if you are on a 10-15 minute long call with a frequent caller and you see that somebody's trying to get through on the NSPL line, that frequent caller may call every day. They may call several times a day. They know that they can call back. It's okay to let them know, I'm so sorry, it's really busy right now and I have to get going, but please feel free to call back anytime so that you can answer that call. We don't know who's going to be calling from the NSPL line. We don't know who's calling our local line. So we really do need to answer those calls to make sure that those people don't feel like a crisis line isn't able to listen to them. For iCarol, our summaries need to meet a certain standard. Everybody needs to be writing in your iCarol summaries whether or not the caller is safe. You also need to put the last 4 digits of their phone number, if it is available, in your summary at the bottom. Do not put the phone numbers or the last 4 in the name of the caller. You need to elaborate on some of your summaries. If you talk to an abusive caller or a sex caller, it is critical that you use direct quotes, even though it may be difficult to say some of the explicit things that they're saying. It helps us a lot, and it will help the next person who takes a call from them to know what to look out for. So please use direct quotes when possible. If you're talking with somebody for 30 minutes, there needs to be more than 1 sentence there. You need to tell us what you talked about. Please don't write in your contact reports, oh, nothing's changed since the last time we spoke. We don't know when the last time you spoke with them is. So you need to elaborate on your contact reports. You need to make sure that we know what the context is for what you talked about with them. And in addition to that, on Thursday, you should have received an email from me with the updated iCarol contact form. It's a walkthrough of the entire form, and that form is going to be live on the 1st. So please familiarize yourself with the contact form so that you're not caught off guard when there's a bunch of new options going on. You don't know what is required and what isn't. Just walk through that form, familiarize yourself, and honestly, we had to change up the form because it wasn't meeting our Department of Public Health standards, but the form includes a lot of really useful information for us moving forward regarding demographics. So those are our points of focus, and I'm going to hand it back to Janelle.
Thanks, Jessamine. And I'm hopeful that everyone who listened to you go through these 6 points is nodding their head along because they've had this training before. Everyone's been required to do their training in onboarding, then also all the vibrant trainings. And so this is really should be a refresher. Of course, we're introducing some new components here, but they're all built off those core metrics, those core values that we've had for a long time. And just a few things that I want to reiterate is like some of this, like the monitoring and the quality assurance and bringing on strong training program and consistency is for all of us and our safety, the privacy components, but it's also for the caller, right? So the caller is having a consistent experience. It might be different CLA volunteer, have a different style, have a different tone of voice, have a different personality, of course, right? We want that. But it's also for the caller to have those boundaries and have those same expectations consistently across their experience when they call, whether it's the Samaritan's Line or 988. And so that consistency helps us all do a better job when we know what the expectations are. And for that time limit that we talked about, sometimes if you're on a caller with a caller and your supervisor might reach out to you and say, it's been 25, 30 minutes, just want to make sure you're okay, right? They just want to, I want you to be able to respond to them because they just want to make sure that this isn't a crisis call. So you might be getting some more check-ins than perhaps you're used to because we just want to see, is something escalating? Is my CLA feeling okay? Do they feel like they have things under control? So when you get that prompt or that communication from our supervisor, please make sure you reach back out. And even if it's with the call still going on, even if it's in the Elevate chat, just saying like, yep, I'm good. I'm finishing it up. This is about this, because we all need to be prepared should the situation need more support or should it be escalating, right? So a lot of these things, again, we're asking our supervisors to do two things: follow some uniform policy and also use context, right? Which we know is not always easy, right? So these are just some things we want you to know what might be happening and things that you can start to expect. So again, all of these are reminders or just improvements. Okay, so I like, based on kind of those 6 points, I put together 2 slides of just daily check-ins when you're doing your shifts, right? So these daily questions: have I prioritized a quiet working space, arriving on time, and my shift commitments, right? So this is just a nice question to ask yourself every day. Have I followed check-in, break time, and checkout protocol and chat correspondence? Have I alerted the Elevate chat about special protocol callers? Have I responded in a timely way to my supervisor's communications? Have I communicated in Elevate in a kind, appropriate, and effective way that respects callers, coworkers, and supervisors? So really thinking about Elevate as public space, public workspace, a professional space, right? So we ask that everyone use that space in a way that if you almost had like an office bulletin board in the center of an in-person work environment, that's kind of like a message board that everybody would see, that admin might come back and read through, supervisors might read through, other CLAs, and then it's also not just how we treat each other, but how we treat and how we're talking about callers.
One
Right? So
thing on this as well,
yeah,
that I just wanted to include, something may be changing regarding arriving on time, depending on who you've heard it from. So I think that there used to be kind of a policy around, if you show up 5 minutes early to your shift, you can sign out 5 minutes late, or you can sign out 5 minutes early.
right.
We're changing that. So we need you to sign at the start of your shift. The minute that your shift is starting is when you should be signing in, and the minute that your shift is ending is when you should be signing out. If everybody, you know, logs out 5 minutes early, that means that we have 5 minutes where our crisis line is not staffed, or if most people sign out 5 minutes early, we may only have one person who's answering calls for 5 minutes. And you guys know if it's busy, that's not possible for us to get to all the callers. Please do not, log out early. Please do not show up late. If you need to, for whatever reason, that communication is extremely important, and not just in the CLA group chat, to your supervisor directly. If you need to sign out early, you cannot just inform the group chat, I'm leaving. You need to let the supervisor know, is it okay if I leave at this time? Or I don't know if there's an emergency situation that comes up, but if there isn't anything like that, please stay until the end of your shift and do not log out early, or else it's putting way more pressure on those CLAs who are staying until the end of their shift, and who sometimes even need to stay after because a lot of people are logging on late. So please just try to adhere to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's reasons for that, right? Like we need the state and the government and Department of Public Health requires a certain number of staffing live on the line during certain shifts, a certain answer rate, a certain, times. There's all of these things being looked at and reflecting on us. So again, these things aren't in place because we're trying to control you. They're in place for the safety of the caller, for the safety of the line, and for the metrics we need to meet to run the crisis line. Great. Okay, part 2 here is, have I prioritized confidentiality about myself, the crisis line, and the caller? Jessamine went into great detail about why this is important. Again, you're befriending, but you're not friends. And there's a very important and critical difference there. And we ask that everyone uphold that for everyone's benefit. Have I done a thorough, accurate, and timely contact report? Have I asked for help when I need support, clarification, or connection? We are a decentralized workforce. We are not all in the same room like when Samaritan started answering phone calls. We need to make sure that we remember we don't have to isolate. We don't have to save every issue that comes up on the line. We have a team that we're working with. We have a supervisor that we're working with. We have support. That 24/7, 365 supervisor role is so critical to the line. Use them. They're ready. They want to help. They're eager to help, and they want to make sure that you're safe and our callers are safe. Have I prioritized my shifts and commitment to working the required hours? And have I maintained accurate time cards with correct codes, notes, and up-to-date information? Right? So this is just important so you can get paid, right? This is so important because part of our job in leading the line is reconciling everyone's pay based on when they've logged on, when they've had trainings, when they've attended the team lead meetings, when they've maybe had supervisor meetings, different roles, different codes, right? There's a lot that goes into making sure that this is all correct. And we want you to get the pay that you've earned and the pay that you deserve. So your attention to the time cards is critical. So this is just a lot of reminders, a lot of reflection, and some introduction to where we're heading. And I appreciate, Jessamine appreciates your attention to these matters, keeping these questions, these check-in questions close by and just running through them as you think, am I doing what I need to do to be the best CLA volunteer intern that I can be, right? So running through this list every day, kind of maybe reminding each other, right? That horizontal learning we get from being in community and learning from each other. You might get some of these prompts from your supervisors, right? So being open and willing to be coached, to get feedback, to say like, oh, I could really use that help, right? And to reach out and have that be two-way. So of course, Jessamine and I certainly want to hear from you. And so, like I said at the beginning, you'll be getting a Google form. Your questions are welcome. We're always building trainings. A big part of my job has been trying to see where the gaps are and help fill them. Jessamine knows the line so intimately, having worked as a CLA, as a shift supervisor, and now as part of the admin team as the crisis coordinator. So she's always thinking about all of you. She knows exactly what it's like to be in your shoes. She gives incredible insight as we try to come up with policy and protocol and see what we need to do to strengthen the line. So that's the point of view we have here. So your questions are very welcome, and we'll answer them going forward. We do intend to do a live kind of town hall where anyone who can be present has the opportunity to be present. And again, we want to make sure that you sign off on this document so that I sign off on watching this in Air Mason, reviewing all of the policies that you've already signed, and letting us know if you need clarification, if you have follow-ups, if you're feeling a certain way, if something felt unsure. All of that is welcome so that we can continue to work together towards the common goal of serving our callers and making this line the strongest it can be.
Please
So I'm
do
okay.
follow
Yeah,
the
Desmond, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, please do give us feedback because a lot of this, or most of this retrain has come from feedback that we have received from the team meetings, from the supervisor meetings, from just CLAs reaching out to us and letting us know, hey, this is an issue. We love getting feedback. We are going to try our best to, just get everybody's voice heard. Because if you're experiencing an issue on the line, chances are a lot of other people are too. So please bring it to our attention so that we can make changes that need to be made.
Yeah. And so there's this form that you can give immediate and direct feedback about what we talked about today or something else that's on your mind. But you also have your team leads. That's a great place to give feedback, and they connect with Jessamine. You also have your supervisors who are great to give feedback. They've been part of this training that has been ongoing. They've been critical in the development of the DFF that's being launched on August 5th. So that's a key point. Monday, August 5th is when that will be launched. But we should all be following these protocols by now. So there's many places you can check in to get that clarity, but we encourage you to help us strengthen the line because you might see things, experience things, hear things different than we do, being that you're working, different shifts than we are, and you're interacting directly with callers. So also, finally, you might say, Janelle and Jessamine did not get to X. You didn't address X, right? So we really took 2 solid months of getting really crystal clear on what seemed to be the most consistent areas that need improvement or have come to our attention. So that was that's what we focused on here. And that was part of this retrain as we launched the DFF. So the goal of this is a refresher, a retrain, and the launching of the DFF. There will be more things to discuss in the future. So our disclaimer is that we certainly didn't get to everything, but we wanted to do as much as we can without overwhelming, while also addressing some things that feel critical and important in the here and now. So thank you so much for watching. Please sign off. Please continue to take good care of yourselves, your mental and physical health, the things that make you happy and uplift you. We know this is not an easy job. And so we deeply appreciate the way you show up every day for each other, for the callers. So please continue to take good care. And we are here and we look forward to going forward with you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.